It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at whether Carol released Negan or had something to do with Negan's escape. So of course at the end of 10:04, we had Negan escaping. Now they did not reveal who let Negan out and whether anyone did, or whether he got out himself or he escaped somehow by himself. Now Lydia did take the blame, but of course we do know that she was lying because Daryl was watching her all night long. And Daryl said that she did not help Negan escape. And in the next episode, 10:05, we saw what Negan was up to after his escape, what he was doing. Eventually, at the end of that episode, which aired last week, he changed his plan a little bit and he actually decided to cross into Whisper territory to find the Whispers, to be able to interact with them. Now, we don't know what his plan is. And at this point, we don't know whether they're following his comic arc or not, but it's very, very likely. But what's important to note here is that Negan's plan at this point is either to join the Whispers or for him to basically attack the Whispers from the inside, have them trust him, get close enough to Alpha, and then take her out. And that would be his way to redeem himself. And of course, he would definitely need to redeem himself at this point because of what happened in episode 4. He killed someone. Of course, it was an accident, but Alexandrians don't see it that way. They see him as the boogeyman still. They see him as a murderer. So they're out for blood. And if he comes back with nothing, they're not going to take him back. They're going to want blood even more. They're going to want him dead on the spot. So for Negan to redeem himself, his strategy is to attack the Whisperers from the inside and do some damage, and then use that to be able to redeem himself. Now there's a flip side of that, like I said. Negan's strategy could be just to join the Whisperers. He might want to become a Whisperer. Now we don't know exactly which way he's going to go and whether they're going to follow the comic arc or not, but based on the teasers for the next episode, we do know that it is in fact true that he does want to join the Whisperers. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know what his intentions are after he does so. Now, one thing I do want to mention in brackets here is that it will not necessarily work if Carol did in fact help Negan escape. Because if Carol let Negan escape with this plan, she would have most likely told him what her intentions are. So then, why would Negan initially not want to cross into Whisper's territory and then change his mind later on and do so later? So that doesn't really work. But there are two things that we need to keep in mind. One is that we don't know whether Carol did interact with Negan at that point or not. She might have just let him out and kind of assumed or hoped that Negan would do what she wants him to do. And then the second thing is that the first time Negan saw the Whisperer's border, Brendan was around. So Negan might not necessarily have trusted Brendan to let him in on the secret. Now, going back to Carol, why would Carol want Negan out? Or why would she let Negan out? And there's actually a very easy explanation for that. We do know that Carol wants blood. She wants Alpha dead. She wants the Whisperers destroyed. But her hands are tied, of course, because Michonne, Daryl, most of the Alexandrians, Hilltoppers, and others are against going to war with the Whisperers. They're against attacking the Whisperers because they are aware of the deadly repercussions of that. Because they know Alpha's going to release her horde. And also to add to that, her attempt to kill Alpha failed. So at this point, she's basically backed herself into a corner. And her only choice, seek help from an old enemy. Now, we don't exactly know how Carol feels about Negan. They haven't really shared that much about that. We don't know whether Carol still sees Negan as an enemy or not and how they're going to play that off. But at the same time, at this point, Carol's number one weapon against Alpha and the Whisperers is Negan. So Carol might have actually let Negan out so Negan does her work for her in a way. So that's entirely possible. And based on what we know now, what we saw at the end of episode 5, where Negan actually crossed into the Whisperer's territory, and assuming that Negan's intentions are to do some damage on the inside, then Carol's decision to release Negan would pay off for sure. So assuming that Carol let Negan out and that Negan is basically going to do some damage from the inside and potentially get himself close enough to Alpha to kill her. I don't like something about that. We won't see a Carol Alpha showdown. We won't see Carol confront Alpha. They've been teasing that. They've been building towards that for the most part. So if that doesn't happen, then it is disappointing to an extent. Now, for a long time, based on what I've kind of known from the comics and what we've seen so far, I was under the impression that we were going to see Negan and Carol working together to destroy Alpha and the Whisperers. And that could be where they're going with it. But if they leave Carol out completely and have Negan do the work, then that is disappointing to an extent. Even though it's great that they remix this story to an extent and have Carol help Negan escape and then Negan do the work. So that would be interesting, but at the same time, it takes away from Carol's storyline. Now, looking at it from another perspective, it's also entirely possible that Negan won't be alone in killing Alpha and destroying the Whisperers, and that we will see some sort of a story where Negan and Carol work together to do so. Whether Negan initiates it himself and Carol somehow crosses paths with him and they work together to accomplish that, or whether they initiate it together, that's a different story. But I think it's entirely possible Carol did release Negan. Now, the other thing I do want to mention is that in the upcoming episode, based on the trailers, we do know that Carol and Daryl go out on a mission. Well, it's Carol's mission, but Daryl tags along. And Carol's mission is to find Alpha's hoard and destroy it. Now, putting that together with what we are assuming, which is that she let Negan out, it would kind of make sense. If Negan does the work killing Alpha and maybe killing some of the main Whisperers, then if Carol finds and destroys the herd, that would destroy the Whisperers. They would have zero chance of reforming or releasing their herd or doing anything like that. So that does definitely back it up. The final thing I do want to touch on, a couple of weeks ago, they did tease that Negan and Carol were going to have a scene together or several scenes together. And if you don't know, they've never had a scene together. So that's very, very interesting and exciting. Now, if what we are assuming is true and Negan and Carol cross paths, are there in this episode coming up or the next episode, everything kind of lines up. Now, I've always wanted Negan to see Carol and for Negan to basically interact with Carol because obviously Carol is a badass. So I wanted to see Negan interacting and reacting to Carol's badassness. Now, I wanted this before when all that war was going on with the Saviors. But they skipped over that. They didn't have anything like that. They didn't have a scene between Carol and Negan. So that's a little disappointing and underwhelming for me as a fan of both of these characters. And I think it would have fit in that story arc for sure. But now, where we are, I think this is a perfect opportunity to basically have those together in a scene. Them working together. And I think we still can have a scenario where Negan sees how badass Carol is and reacts to that. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to share in this video. One final thing I want to say is that I am behind on videos. I still have to do my episode predictions for the upcoming episode as well as my video looking at the pictures they released for the upcoming episode. So those will be coming up tomorrow. I have another video coming up tonight, which is going to be related to Ezekiel. So stay tuned for that. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.